Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Coffin. Welcome to our 48th installment in the Torah portion of the week. We're holding by Parshas Shoftim. So the beginning of Parshas Shoftim tells us, chapter 17, verse 7, it says, "The hand of the witnesses shall be upon him, first to put him to death, the hand of the entire people afterwards, and you shall destroy the evil from your midst." So we're talking about two witnesses or three witnesses that have the ability to see somebody do something, and that condemns the person because one witness isn't enough. You need two witnesses or three witnesses to condemn a person, as we see in verse 6. But in verse 7, it says that the hand of the witnesses shall be upon him, again, to put him to death. And at the end it says, you shall destroy the evil from your midst. Now, there's an obvious question, what does that mean? What does it mean, destroy the evil from your midst? So it says, Moed Rebbe, Harav Agon Moshe Sternbuch, and Tam Vadas. He brings out over here that somebody who's surrounded by evil people, by people that transgress, right? They don't keep Shabbos, they don't keep the festivals, whatever they don't do, let's say, and they do things that are against the Torah. So what happens? A person becomes accustomed to what they do, and it doesn't seem like it's so important in their eyes. So here, the Torah says that you should uproot the evil from your midst. So now, what does that mean exactly? So here, my Rebbe says that the witnesses, as we were speaking about before, the witnesses who see somebody sin, once they see somebody do something that they're liable, let's say in this case for the death penalty, they're liable for the death penalty. What does it do? It makes an impression. It makes an impression on the witnesses, even though they warn the person and they see him do it, and then the person gets stoned or whatever the punishment is for what they do. The Torah says, uproot the evil from your midst. Because once they've seen someone transgress, and someone transgress something severe, nonetheless, they're not the same. It is as if to say, it's not that important in their eyes, the severity of the transgression. Now keep in mind, there are four types of corporal punishment. So in this case, it's one type of corporal punishment, meaning person, whatever he did, let's say he got warned about keeping the laws of Shabbos, and they warned him about the right category. So if they warn him about the right category, he's going to get the death penalty by stoning if there's a temple in existence. Nonetheless, person's going to get stoned, and he's going to get stoned through these witnesses, right? These witnesses condemn him, and they get stoned. And they die. Now, what happens? So essentially what happens is, you have these witnesses see somebody transgress. Because they see somebody transgress, they warn him. Person says, I don't care, I'm going to do it anyway. They warn him, take him to the rabbinical court, that's it. Person gets killed. Now, the first thing here is that he sees somebody transgress. Now, seeing someone transgress, you say, well, I live in a neighborhood where, unfortunately, there are non-religious Jews that live there, and they don't keep Shabbos. Let's say we'll use Shabbos as an example. They don't keep Shabbos. They mow the lawn, they go out, they do other things that are against either Shabbos itself or the spirit of Shabbos. Let's say, we'll make it easy, they transgress something that 100% is forbidden. Now, what happens? You witness it. You go to synagogue, you're walking to synagogue, and the other person's mowing his lawn. Right? This other Jew is mowing his lawn. So you can say, okay, he's mowing his lawn. He doesn't know any better. And this is what he does on his Saturday. For me, it's Shabbos. I go to synagogue. I have meals in my house. Sing Shabbos songs at the table. Learn. Right? We learn Torah on Shabbos as well. A lot of things to do that we sanctify the day. We sanctify the day by doing. Now, somebody doesn't do that. and now you witness them, however you see them, you witness them transgressing. Now what does that do? Now what that does is it weakens your resolve. Why? Because even though you believe in what you believe in, and it's very strong, why should it weaken your resolve? What are we, that fragile? A person sees someone, sees a Jew mowing the lawn on Shabbos. All right, so he mows the lawn. So what do you care? Why is it your problem? First of all, this is a Talmudic statement. Kol Yisrael Ravim was that. All Jews are accountable one for the other. Nonetheless, we see something another Jew does. It's painful to us. Right? Really, our soul should be jumping up and down, yelling and screaming. Because the spiritual soul that wants to always do the right thing, right? That wants to get back and be close to God as possible. So it sees something that goes against what God wants. So even in this case, we had a temple, you had witnesses, the person gets killed, but the witnesses still see what the person did. Not only that, but the person gets killed. So how can you say it's going to look light in your eyes? The person gets thrown off a 3-story building. They aim for his head. And if he doesn't die, they take a huge boulder, aim for his heart. Right? You know what they say? If the left one doesn't get you, the left one doesn't get you, the right one will. So even though justice has been carried out in the time when the temple existed, nonetheless the person still in there seeing this person desecrate Shabbos and not care. So it makes them weaker in a certain way. They see the repercussions in front of their face. Doesn't matter. It still weakens them enough. That Shabbos is considered light in their eyes. Now, if we don't have a temple today, which we don't, should be speedily rebuilt in our days, but we don't have a temple today. Since we don't have a temple today, and we see Jews that desecrate Shabbos, that should affect us. That should make us want to scream out. Now, obviously, you're not going to confront them on it. That'd be a desecration of God's name. You're certainly not going to throw rocks at them. And people who do, well, they got their own problems, but that's certainly not permissible. You're not going to draw them closer to want to keep Shabbos by stoning them, right? Throwing stones at them. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Even though there are some people that do it, certainly not the majority by any stretch. It's only a handful of people, and they're certainly not listening to anybody, doing whatever they want. So that is no place in Judaism. So why they do it, they're misguided. Bottom line, they're misguided. But the idea is that when we see somebody, let's say we live in the vicinity of people who don't keep Shabbos. Right? There are Jews that don't keep Shabbos. So if they don't keep Shabbos, the question is, how does it affect me? I do what I have to do. Okay, so they don't want to keep Shabbos. That's their choice. Obviously they're going to pay a price. There will be a price to be paid later, or even in this world. But at the end of the day, they're doing whatever they want to do. So one thing is, if you'd see there be a zap treatment, and the person, if he did something wrong on Shabbos and transgressed on purpose, and he gets zapped, okay, so then we'd see how careful we have to be when we do things. But we don't have a zap treatment today because we wouldn't have free will. Right? Free will is crucial. God lets us do what we want. But somebody who sees someone act on their free will in a negative way, in this case, they don't keep Shabbos. They desecrate Shabbos. So when a person sees that, what's the first thing he wants to do? His soul wants to scream out. Now, if your soul doesn't want to scream out, that means there's something wrong with you spiritually. The reason is because what goes on is you're seeing someone trample over God's world. When a person keeps Shabbos, it's as if they kept the entire Torah. Because they're basically giving credibility God created the world by them keeping Shabbos. Because Friday night, they'll stand up and they'll say, They'll say that God stopped creating. On the seventh day, He stopped creating. So that we're giving testimony to. We're giving testimony to the fact that God made the world. That's why you stand up when you make Kiddush Friday night, because you're giving testimony that God created the world. And when you give testimony, you stand, right? You stand. So somebody, we're not even going to say forget not making Kiddush, but they desecrate Shabbos. So not only that, but they don't believe God created the world. That's clear, right? The Talmud says clear that someone who desecrates the Shabbos, if they stamped on the entire Torah, they go against why God created the world and what the purpose of the world is. So if a person sees that, and again, even if there's no zap treatment, even if there's no punishment straight away, and a person sees that, and seemingly nothing happens, so what do they think? Now, they may think, okay, this person's going to get it in the end. Even if he did it because he doesn't know anything, he's still going to get punished at some level. But even so, when he sees that, it weakens his resolve. Because he's seen someone deny that God created the world. So a person, if they were really holding where they should be jumping up and down screaming. Not because they want to make the other person feel bad. And even if you do that, it's not going to bring him closer to the Torah. That we already saw. But if he's jumping up and down, yelling and screaming because it pains him. If someone screams, it's not because they think, oh, what are you doing, you idiot, you moron. Don't you know what Shabbos is? Don't you understand how important it is? It's like, just leave me alone. Let me mow the lawn. Let me watch the ball game. I'm going to go in my car. I'm going out. I'm doing whatever. Don't be so square. Don't live in your own bubble. There are real people out there who do real things on Shabbos. You just stay in your home and do nothing. Well, that's not true. But they'll make all kinds of excuses and say, just let me do what I want to do. What do you care? And the answer is your soul cares. Your heart should care also. But your soul should be pained. When you see someone desecrate God's name and desecrate why he set up the world, it should be painful. He's always oversensitive. Yeah, his soul is sensitive. When it sees something horrific, it cries out. It screams. It doesn't go, oh, you made the wrong choice. Like we're better. Like we're saying we're so much better. Don't make the mistake. We don't have a chip on our shoulder. Orthodox Jews do not think they're better than everybody else. And if they do, they're wrong. If they walk around with a chip on their shoulder, they're wrong. There's no two ways about it. The reason that we're considered chosen does not mean better. Chosen means you have more obligation. Chosen means we chose God. We said Naaseh v'nishma. We said we will do, and then we will hear. And God gave us the Torah. The other nations want to know what was written in it. God tells them. They said, no, we're not interested. God came to the Jewish people, said, you want to know what's written in the Torah? They said, no, we don't care. We will do, and then we will hear what it's all about. So therefore, the Jewish people come, and they choose God, and God chooses them. So that's great. So, choosing God comes with a price. What's the price? All the mitzvahs that we have to do. You have to have purity of thought, purity of action. Be careful when you make blessings. Can't desecrate the Sabbath. You have to keep the festivals. Can't speak lashon hara. Can't speak badly against others. Have to keep the laws of shatnez. Not mixing wool and linen. All these different things we have to do, right? Judaism has no problem obligating people to do things. That is for sure. So therefore what? Therefore it doesn't make us better. The mitzvahs obligate us. Being chosen obligates us. Now, if we do what we're supposed to do, then we have the ability to sanctify God's name. Then we have the ability where people will say, oh, this person helped Granny cross the street. Thank God his father taught him Torah. Thank God his Rebbe taught him Torah. That's what Torah should be. We should be walking around trying to sanctify God's name as much as possible. And helping others. And doing the right thing. And saying the proper blessings. With proper intention. I.e. knowing what the words mean. Saying it clearly. Saying it slowly. So if a person, let's say a non-religious person, eating at your table and you make a blessing. Blah, 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 and you say really quickly, oh wow. What a blessing he just made. It looks like he's turning over the world. Or does it look like he's just stuffing his face? Right? He wants to make the blessing because he's stuffing. Boy, look at that intention. Yep. One spoonful, another one, a third one, a fourth one, an eighth one. Doesn't come up for air. So then someone will say, that's what Torah is? That's how the rabbis teach you to eat? No, of course not. Do we have our own issues? 100%. But if someone's watching you, all the more so, you got to be careful. You represent God's people. You represent Torah. You like a pig? That's bad. You speak out when you shouldn't? That's bad. Other people do, it doesn't matter. You're held on a higher pedestal. For better or for worse. So, we have to show by example. So if we see others do something wrong, so we could try and give rebuke, even though in this generation we don't have rebuke today pretty much because no one knows how to give it properly. And people probably be more offended if you try and rebuke someone. But even if we see someone do something wrong, especially let's say someone doesn't keep Shabbos and we see them desecrate Shabbos, we have to want to go out of our skin. We have to do everything in our power to stay within our skin. But someone who says, no, it doesn't bother me. Nah, it doesn't affect me. Okay, you want to go mow the lawn, go mow the lawn. Has no effect on me. So that person's got spiritual issues. Because it absolutely should affect you. Seeing someone desecrate God's name, see someone trample on it to the extent that it's like they don't believe in that God created the world, so that's bad. But if you say, well, it doesn't affect me, what kind of Jew are you? Now again, it doesn't mean you jump up and yell and scream, literally. But your soul should be pained. Again, not because you're better, or you think you're better. You're pained because it pulls God away from this world. It takes God out of this world. Even though we're living in a world of Hester upon where God is tremendously hidden, nonetheless, we have the ability to sanctify His name. When we do the right thing, we can go all the way up here. When we do the wrong thing, we can go all the way down to the bottom. Depends what we do. So here the Torah says, I want you to uproot this thing. It means uproot within yourself. Uproot these complacent thoughts where someone desecrates Shabbos in front of your face and you say, well, it doesn't bother me. Really? It doesn't bother you? Should. Like someone once said to me, if you walk on a beach and you're affected by what you see, then there's a problem. So my answer was, if you're not affected, then you're dead. Right? Because, obviously people dressed a certain way, and God gave us a tremendous, powerful urge, and to say, well, you have to suppress it at all levels. So the Torah doesn't say that. The Torah says you have to be able to use it properly. Doesn't mean that, I have to always act on what I see, etc. I have to control it. So if I walk in a place where I might lose control, doesn't mean I'm going to do anything. But it could also mean that I may have thoughts I shouldn't have. So, who told you to have thoughts like that? True, I agree. But is it natural? Isn't it natural if a person walks on the beach, they may think something? That's natural. So a psychiatrist would say, yeah, that's natural. Again, you're not acting on anything, it's just what you think. Could it cause you to have certain thoughts? 100%. Is that normal? It's normal. Do we have to work on what we think about? Yes. But do I have to put myself in a position where I have to think about these things and really stick it in front of my face and try to overcome it? You're not going to do that. You're not going to be successful. If a person has a choice to go, in two directions, right? And in one direction, there's a house of prostitutes. You send your son in that direction. What do you think is going to happen? Doesn't mean it will happen, but what's the logical thing that could happen? Your son could end up there. Oh, he doesn't have control. No, he gets enticed. It's definitely a possibility. If you send him in the other direction, he's not going to get enticed because he's not going to see it. And if he doesn't see it, right, that means he doesn't have to think about it. If he doesn't have to think about it, it means that the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination for this particular thing it doesn't even get off the ground. It's not going to do anything because he's not going to think about it. It's clear he's not going to think about it because he's never going to see it. So, you say, well, maybe I should put him in a position to try and overcome it than to try and totally suppress it so we'll never see it. Well, who says? That's not such a good idea. What are the odds it's going to succeed? Well, you say if he had proper training, he will succeed. So that may be true. But everyone's got an evil inclination. Some bigger, some smaller. But the evil inclination is there. If the evil inclination is there, it means it's going to fight with all its might. And even if you never thought about it, all of a sudden, something's going to go off in your head and, you may think about it. So we don't entice ourselves or put ourselves in a position where potentially we're going to fail, if possible. In this case, you have two directions you could go. You could go to Sin City to the right, or you can go to Victorian England to the left. What's better for your soul? I would think what's better for my soul is going to Victorian England. Some may say, go to Sin City and overcome your evil inclination. You'll get more merit. True, but I could also fall much further. We don't put ourselves normally in situations where it's going to be a real struggle to succeed. If you know a person that has a certain, he's got a certain way of thinking, and he's got certain feelings, and you put him in a place or in a direction where those feelings are going to get, aroused or whatever, potentially, don't put him in that direction. Or don't put yourself in that direction. We're not Supermen here. We're human. We have hormones. Doesn't mean you have to suppress everything in one shot. Right? You have to know where your strengths and where your weaknesses are. But if a person's put in a bad situation, you don't want to start there at the beginning. If you get stuck in such a situation, one thing. But to put yourself in such a situation, who says you're allowed to do such a thing? Even if you overcome it, you can raise yourself to higher spiritual levels. That's not what God wants. Right? What's the proof? The proof is by Adam, by the first man. What did he do? He ate from the tree of knowledge, put evil inside of him. So he says, God, what do you want from me? I put evil inside myself, and and it's going to be inside all humans. This evil inclination. So every time someone does something good, so they're going to overcome their evil inclination. They're going to raise themselves exponentially to a higher spiritual level. That's 100% true. Nonetheless, God calls him a heretic. And he calls him a heretic because he says, that's not what I created the world for. I created the world not that way, even though I may agree with you. I may agree with you that the purpose, that doing something right against your evil inclination, you can raise yourself to higher spiritual levels much quicker. That is true. But even if it's true, God says, I didn't want you to do that. But now that you did, okay, there are repercussions. I have to throw you out of the garden because I'm afraid you're going to eat from the tree of life. If you eat from the tree of life, you have to die. Right? You have to die in order to get your true atonement, so you can't eat from the tree of life. So God throws everyone out of the Garden of Eden. But all of creation changed because man ate from the tree. Again, even if God would agree that overcoming your evil inclination raises yourself to a much higher spiritual level at a much quicker pace, even so, God says you are a heretic. I didn't create the world for that. It's not what I wanted, but I gave you free will. Okay? You had free will. You took it. You did it. Now there are repercussions. Now everybody has to go through the death process. Right? You have to go through death. You get atonement. Then I'm going to judge you. And then wherever you end up, you end up. Boy, one event in history changed the world. Changed everything that happened. So, imagine someone witnessed that. And that other person knows you're not allowed to eat from the tree. And he watches them do it. Is he the same person? He can't be the same person. Because he just watched them do something and get the zap treatment. They can't be the same person. But look at all the repercussions now. Since there's so many repercussions, the world has absolutely changed. Because the world has absolutely changed, how can the person not be affected? The person has to be affected. Right? He's definitely going to be affected. He's going to be affected to the extent that he's going to look at the world differently now. That's a pretty big effect. They look at it the same. There was no such thing as death before. So now he has to go through it. Doesn't really know what death is. We'll find out. Right? Find out afterwards. So, by doing so, he brought a reality to the world. So too, someone, let's say, desecrates Shabbos, and a person witnesses it. He's not better for witnessing it. He can say, tisk, 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 what a terrible thing. But he should be going out of his mind, because that person doesn't care about Shabbos. And it should bother us. Not because we think we're better. And not because we know you have an obligation to keep Shabbos. And all the repercussions that go with it. Yes, that's true. But also we should feel bad because God's name has been desecrated. God's purpose of creation has been desecrated. The fact that we know He runs the world has been denied now by this person. They don't care. Right? Most of the people out there are apathetic. They don't care. Doesn't mean anything because they don't know they don't have any connection. It's like their spiritual soul is dead. It's like trying to start a Jeep with a 9-volt. So how do you explain that to someone? So if you have a little bit of charisma and you can explain about spiritual worlds and different things, and the person's open, he has to be open, otherwise it's going to be very hard to reach them. Nonetheless, if a person has the ability, good. And if he knows he doesn't, he knows whatever he says is going to be used against him, you still have to be pained. It still has to bother you. Because yes, what other people does matters. There will be repercussions. But you're also looking at what they're missing out on. You say, don't you understand what Shabbos is? This is what you're saying to yourself. Don't you understand what Shabbos is? Where it comes from, what it does for us, what it does for man, the power that it has. You're giving credibility to the fact that God created the world. You have nice food, you dress up. Do all these different things. And tragically, this person doesn't care. Just stamps all over it. Again, it may not be intentional. Just doesn't know. Doesn't know doesn't mean he's not liable. Ignorance isn't bliss. Right? A friend of mine would always say that if I'm ignorant, God can't have any claims against me. Well, He can claim against you for being stupid. 614th commandment, don't be stupid. He can claim that. So, you don't want to use that as an excuse. Knowledge is power. If a person chooses, they don't want to know, it's considered a merit. It's considered a rebellion, so to speak, against God, even if they don't know anything. Even if that's not their intention. Essentially, that's what it is. You are denying that God created the world. That's pretty severe. That's why Shabbos is a major tenet of Judaism. That God created the world and then He stopped. And that Shabbos has the ability to sanctify the rest of the week. We don't, in Kabbalistic terms, even though we say every day this psalm for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is like a build up to Shabbos, really, that Shabbos is really for the strength of the entire next week. Then when you finally get to Shabbos, it means that the strength of the week, of that week up until Shabbos, was because of the power of Shabbos the week before. That keeps the world going. Kind of like a regeneration. You take 24 hours off, so to speak. You don't create, you don't write, you don't destroy, but you tune into God's world. So the more we delve into what Shabbos means, the more we can understand how painful it is. This has nothing to do with being better. We're pained by the fact that people don't appreciate what Shabbos is. Or people say, well, you don't appreciate what I do. You just have your own small vision of how you look at the world. You do what you do, I do what I do. But doesn't God run the world? Isn't God in charge? Doesn't He call the shots? So we believe, God calls the shots. God's in charge. 100%. So you deny that. So where's common ground? Not so much common ground. You deny that. So you say, I don't want to speak about it. Let me do what I want to do. I don't want to hear about religious coercion. We're not talking about religious coercion. You have the right to do whatever you want to do. You want to tune in? God will say you're more than welcome. I'll even help you. You want to tune out? God says I'm not going to stop you. You will miss out because you're missing out on God, in God's world and what He wants for us. Be that as it may, God's going to say, okay, you want to check out? Check out. I'm giving you an opportunity to check in. You don't want it. So this is a tremendous lesson. Which is that when we see somebody and they're going in a different direction, i.e. in this case, they don't keep Shabbos, and you witness that, so you say, oh, what a tragic thing. It's so tragic because look what you're missing out on. Look at all the good things that Shabbos has. We tune into God's world once a week. God gives a tremendous opportunity. And you're throwing it away for nothing. Because you don't understand what it is. You're throwing it away because of lack of knowledge. That's tragic. Again, that in no way means that we're better. There are plenty of non-religious people that act better than religious people. No question. So we have what to work on. But we have obligations. So when it comes to Shabbos or any other mitzvah that we do, it's because God commanded us to do it. Not because God said, I'm going to make you better if you do it. We'll be looked at differently if we do it in the right way. Because people will say, wow, that's really the power of Torah. That is a real holy individual. Too bad the rest of the people aren't like that. That may be true. And we have a lot of shortcomings. Most people have a lot of shortcomings. True. Doesn't mean we don't have to act to the best of our ability. Doesn't mean we shouldn't do everything we can to be the best people we can. We're for sure going to have failures. But if we do enough things right, then people say, wow, look at the power of Torah. Look what God created. That's a tremendous thing. But you see, if you only see the negative, and you see the negative things people do, yeah, I can understand. People will be a little bit upset. They see people steal, see people cheat, misrepresent, they do other things. True. We're our own worst enemy, no question about it. But imagine if a lot of people would do the right thing. And a person looking on the outside would say, wow, there really is something to Torah. So I'm always fond of saying, don't mix up Jews and Judaism. Just because people do things doesn't mean it's right. But you see, you got to be within certain parameters. Person wants to say, you do what you do, I'll do what I do. Now, that may be true. At least in secular terms, that may be true. But if my soul or a person's soul is sensitive, and they're sensitive to godliness, because they've worked on themselves, they've read up on what the holidays represent, they've read up what Shabbos is, and what they do on Shabbos, and what they get out of it, and they see somebody that seemingly tramples all over it. Again, it can be trampled on because of lack of knowledge. It doesn't have to be on purpose because they hate God. Some do. Some will have claims against him for whatever reason. If he brought sickness, he brought difficulty, whatever. They could have a claim against God and be angry. But most people are not. Most people just lack knowledge. And if they're given a little bit of knowledge, it opens their eyes. But a lot of people don't even want that. They don't even want that little bit because, next thing you know, they'll be ripping toilet paper before Shabbos and say, hey, how did I get this far? Tell you a story. A true story. Somebody told me, I was speaking to somebody, whatever, young kids, actually teenagers, and someone said, whatever you do, don't convert them. Now, these were Jews, so I wasn't talking about converting to Judaism. What they meant was, don't make them like you. I'm like, me? Black kippah, white shirt, black hat. Like, what's so bad? So what they meant was, don't give them knowledge that they're going to separate from their family. If they didn't grow up religious and they become religious, it's going to cause problems. That was what they meant. Like, don't convert them to your quote-unquote religion, even though they themselves were Jewish. So I said, I won't do that. You know why? Because I'm speaking about basketball. I don't know the last time you could bring someone closer to Judaism by speaking about sports or about entertainment. But this person was terrified, God forbid, these kids might actually learn something about Judaism. So when it comes to family, it's very hard to give over things because they don't want to listen. They'll say, I remember you did this and you did that. It's very hard, unless they're open. But, educating somebody and understanding what it is not a cult. I've also heard people say, you're stuck in a cult. You know what a cult is? They keep people up late. They don't allow them to sleep. They brainwash them. It's not brainwashing. Right? We believe it's the absolute truth. But, at the end of the day, we question everything. So anyone who's ever walked in the yeshiva knows that. You have two people arguing, learning a text, and, arms are going up and down. There's yelling and screaming going on. Oh, this text doesn't mean that, it means this. And this conversation is like this, and people building and destroying their thoughts about getting to the heart of the text and what it means. That's brainwashing. They're trying to get the absolute truth. Trying to see, is this really what the text says? What are the ramifications? What does it mean? So that's not a cult. A cult would be where you don't ask questions, where you are being brainwashed, where you are not allowed to sleep, and other things that go with it. That's a cult. Being inquisitive, and learning and ripping things apart to get to the truth, that's the furthest thing from a cult. But again, people will be brainwashed and say, that's a cult. But what are they really afraid of? So let's turn the swing here. Someone who desecrates Shabbos in front of us, seemingly they don't care, and we see it, so it makes us weaker in a certain way, unless we say to ourselves and strengthen ourselves in Torah. Because it weakens our resolve. What about the other way? Someone seemingly not so interested in Shabbos, or not so interested in Torah. So, what do they have against learning Torah? What do they have against people who learn Torah, who keep the mitzvahs? What bothers them? Let's call a spade a spade. What really bothers them? What bothers them is what we call Jewish guilt. Now, even if you don't say anything, even if you don't confront them, black kippah, white shirt, black hat, beard, you represent something that they don't keep. So what they'll say is, you think you're better than me. So anyone with half a brain will say, it's not true. I don't think I'm better. Not at all. I just have, obligations that I have to do, and there are repercussions for actions. It nothing to do with being better. There may be things that you're 10 times better than me at. Character trait-wise, other things could very well be. I just have Torah gives me an obligation to do things, so that's what I have to do. You choose not to take on that obligation. But what's the fear? What are they really afraid of? See, they're afraid if they learn, and they find out what they're learning actually makes sense, there goes their whole lifestyle. So someone once told me many years ago, I'd rather be ignorant and not know than finding out if it's true, then I'd have to change. I'm not ready to do that. So at least this person was honest. Misguided, but honest. Because in essence, they're saying is it could be true. But I choose not to look into it because I'm not willing to change my life. But if you do find out it's true, don't you have to change? Isn't that true? You'd have to change. Have to keep kosher. Have to keep Shabbos. It's inconvenient. the rest of your family doesn't keep it. It's inconvenient. You may lose friends over the process. It's inconvenient. People in no way, shape, or form want to rock the boat. They're not interested. They want things to go smoothly, no problems. If I learn and I enjoy what I learn, be careful. Because if I enjoy what I learn, it may mean I'm going to change. And if I change, my spouse ain't going to like that. My kids may not like that. So anyone on this process, who's either in the process of conversion or became a Baal Tshuva, who returned to Judaism as a secular Jew, became an Orthodox Jew, yeah, these are prices they probably paid in some way. Doesn't mean everyone has to pay the same price. Family could be supportive or not. And if they're not supportive, it's part of the process. Doesn't have to be that way, but it can be. They can just turn their back and say, oh, you've changed. You've done all this. We don't have anything to do with you. But you want to show them how beautiful it is. And they'll think you're trying to brainwash them. Why? Because they don't want to change. Change is going to cause problems. So, if you're in a family where, at least the way things look are important, and now if we all go out and you don't go out, let's say to a non-kosher restaurant, and you won't eat there anymore, you've changed the status quo. So now you get blamed for it. We didn't change. You took on this, Orthodox religion. It's also your religion as well. But you took it on. We don't keep it like this. So, when it doesn't affect them, most people don't care. You want to be religious, you want to be a fanatic, want to wear a big hat, a long coat, whatever it is, great. That's if it doesn't affect you. Once you start saying, I'm not eating in your house, I'm not coming for the holidays, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, yeah, that's where it comes in. Now it's more than inconvenient. Now you're saying I'm not good enough. Now the reality is you didn't say anything. You just said, I can't eat here. Right? It's not kosher. There's no standard here. Can't eat here. So they get offended. Now again, are they really offended because you won't eat what they make? Or are they really offended what's behind it? What you're saying is, or what they claim, what you're saying is, they're not good enough. We brought you up this way, you change, you turn your back, we're not good enough for you. You think you're better. Never said I was better. Are there laws of keeping kosher or not? Is the Torah true or is it not? Let's have a discussion. No, not interested in discussion. You've changed. Everything else goes out the window. You want to argue logically? We can have a logical argument. Nope. You won't eat at my house. You think I'm second rate, second class. Not interested. So that's where the line of convenience just went out the window. Up until that point, they could tolerate it. It doesn't really affect them that much. Now, you nailed them in the head. And now you won't eat there, you won't go to family functions, other things. Now they're affected. Now it's inconvenient. Now you're putting your values on us. Okay? There are certain things an Orthodox Jew can do, and certain things they can't do. Torah's not a pretzel, right? You can't turn it into whatever you want. Just make things disappear. It's an absolute disaster. We've spoken about that a number of times. So, on the other side, they're not as open-minded as they say they are. They'll tell you you're closed-minded, and you might be a bigot, and it might be other things, but they're not really that open-minded. If someone said to me, he says, you should be more open-minded, and send your kids to university. Let them, check out things. See the world, so to speak. Experience the world. Quote-unquote, real world. What's going on out there? I said, yeah, I consider it. Why don't you send your 2 boys to yeshiva? Send your 2 boys to an Orthodox yeshiva for a year. Oh, I would never do that. Why not? I don't want my kids to be Orthodox. Yeah, and I don't want my kids going to university and turning out who knows what. So you're really not that open-minded. What are you afraid of? Then all the stigmas will come up. They're going to be brainwashed. They're going to be this. They're going to be that. And secular world doesn't have that. They don't try and throw out all these things. They'll say, yeah, you can think whatever you want. But there's pretty enticing things to believe in. Some more, some less. But you would never send your kids to an Orthodox yeshiva. Yeah, I don't want to get brainwashed. I don't want them to learn about their religion. That's their choice if they choose, really. You send them to secular things your entire life. What makes you so sure they're going to want to go? They would go. You're not even giving them an opportunity. Well, if they wanted the opportunity, they could go. Yeah, sure. Heard that before also. And your kids, you don't give them the opportunities, of course they don't want to go. See where this argument is going? So the other side's afraid. And they have a right to be afraid because there's a lot of truth. And it's not so hard to find it. If you really want to. If you don't want to, so fine, you can live in darkness. But there's a lot of information. Tremendous amount of information. Question is how badly you want to find it. And what you want to do with it. Some people will say, yeah, I'll look into it, but I'm not interested in changing. Well, that may happen, may not happen. But a lot of people won't even look into it because they're afraid of what might happen. So what happened to being open-minded? Open-minded went out the window. So, as my Rebbe here says, get back to the original point, when we uproot something that's bad, we want to uproot this evil from our midst, from amongst us. So that means by seeing what other people do by breaking Shabbos or other things, we're just not the same. Because we're affected by it. Makes our resolve weaker. We should be 10 times stronger. We should. But when we see someone spit in God's face, so to speak, and we don't see the repercussions straight away. So we may think terrible things that, maybe there aren't any repercussions, maybe other things. It just weakens in general. So, if a person is surrounded by these type of people, and you see them sin on a regular basis, and they don't get punished, then we think that maybe this is a lawless world. Maybe God doesn't actually run it. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe it's all not true. You could think that. You're going to say with all that education, a person's going to think that? Weakens the resolve. That's really the bottom line. And if we were holding spiritually where we should be, then we would be like jumping up and down, yelling and screaming, seeing the desecration of God's name, and not being able to do anything about it. I mean, you can't really, there's not so much you can do, but you have to protest in some way to yourself, not to others, to yourself, to make sure your resolve is strong. By jumping up and down, yelling and screaming at them, not going to do anything. Certainly not going to bring them closer to Torah. You want to bring them closer to Torah, invite them for a meal. Give them some kugel. Give them some cholent. Give them some good, soul food. That'll do something. You're going to throw rocks, you're going to yell and scream, tell them they're going to fry in hell forever, good luck. They'll say, fine, you fry in hell forever, I'm going to enjoy life, goodbye. You did something to bring them closer? Absolutely not. But again, this whole thing is for us. It's for how we're going to react for ourselves. Not for what they're going to see. Because our resolve has to be strong. Our resolve has to be we're going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And regardless of what we see, we're still going to grow and grow and grow. But you have to work at it. And it has to be constant. Because you don't want to let in that evil inclination even one iota. Because once your resolve is weakened, it's like a chink in the armor. Chink, chink, chink. And it weakens you as well. So I want to remind everyone, I also have an Intro to Kabbalah class, which meets every Tuesday night. We're speaking about divine providence and suffering and what we're doing in this world. That's 9 o'clock every night, New York time. I also give classes on to people want to convert to Judaism or people want to stay as a Noahide. Take a look at my Facebook fan page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, or Beyond Noahides. Wednesday nights, I'm doing a video series on Tanakh Talk on YouTube. You can go to tanakhtalk.com, and it's going to be about controversial issues. So we're going to speak about all kinds of controversial issues week in and week out. First week we spoke about homosexuality. We'll see. We're going to have a lot of interesting topics there. And anyone who wants to contact me, feel free to shoot me an email. rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. Everyone have a great Shabbos.